Emergency has been reported in this building.
The message will inform you that an emergency has occurred and you should stand by for further instructions. You will be advised subsequently by another message whether you should evacuate or the emergency has been rectified. In the event you are advised to evacuate the ballroom area, please follow the following evacuation routes. Primary evacuation route. Exit north along ballroom corridor and exit the ballroom corridor area completely and continue until you reach the pool junction staircase on your right to car park and follow the directional signs to the first level north car park at the muster point. Secondary evacuation route. Exit west through Belmont Saloon, exit doors down the emergency staircase on your left and follow directional signs to the muster point on the employees' roadway. At the evacuation assembly point, you will stand by for further instructions from our risk management department, who will account for all participants together with the organizers of this event. You will not be allowed to re-enter the building until the all clear signal has been given by the fire services or our risk management department. I do hope that your time spent here would be meaningful and uneventful. We wish all a very pleasant, safe, and productive event.
Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, could we please stand for the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? Thank you. You may take your seats.
On behalf of management and team,
The Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Member of Parliament, Minister of National Security, Government of Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for the Social and Human Development in CARICOM Secretariat, Ms. Joanna Kazana, UN Resident Coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin, Michelle Klein Solomon, Director, Department of Data, Insight, and Policy Coordination, International Organization for Migration, Mr. Jeffrey Kundu, Migration Program Coordinator with the African Union Commission, Michael Fitzpatrick, Deputy Chief of Mission of the Embassy of the United States of America, Permanent Secretaries, representatives of member states, CARICOM institutions, Development Bank, United Nations organizations and agencies, civil society and the media, and to the others that are joining online and those could not be with us in person today, a pleasant morning. I have the unique job of introducing you to a very remarkable panel of speakers as part of our opening ceremony as we kick off on this first day where we'll be delving into issue identification surrounding the development of a migration policy. At this, the Migration Governance Indicators and RAMP workshop, where we explore towards a regional approach to a migration policy in the Caribbean, realizing a shared vision. Our speakers are Ms. Drayton, Michelle Klein Solomon, Michael Fitzpatrick, and of course, without the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines in that order. So without much ado, I would like to invite to the podium to bring us opening remarks, Ms. Alison Drayton, the Assistant Secretary General for the Directorate of Human and Social Development at the CARICOM Secretariat. Ma'am.
Thank you, Sherwin. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this workshop. So, good morning to the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, MP, Minister of National Security, Government of Trinidad and Tobago. Ms. Joanna Kazana, nice to see you again, Joanna. UN Resident Coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin. Michelle Klein-Solomon, and thank you so much for coming down for this meeting. Director, Department of Data, Insight, and Policy Coordination, IOM. Michael Fitzpatrick, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of the United States in Trinidad and Tobago. To permanent secretaries, member state representatives, other development partners, including UN, the Development Bank, civil society, and the media, and to those joining us online, particularly those of you who could not be here because of the storm. And let me pause for a minute to, on behalf of everyone here, extend our thoughts and our hopes to all of those countries that have been hard hit. I've been in several emergency meetings of the heads last week as they took note of the consequences of the storm, and it has both been horrifying and also, as I was saying to a couple of colleagues this morning, heartening to see the extent to which the region has come together in support of each other. I mean, it is very much, one realizes again as one sits in these meetings, it is a family. And the step up across the board, and recognizing, with no disrespect meant to everybody else who has come in, but I have to say, I know from personal knowledge, I was just saying to Minister Hines, that the first reach out was in fact Trinidad and Tobago, and I know that they had ships, ferries on their way on Tuesday night already, and it was much appreciated. So a huge recognition. And also, before I go into the more formal aspects of my remarks, just the reflection that in fact the storm and our attempts to coordinate on the recovery, I think bring 2 points very poignantly home that I hope that as we all engage over the next couple of days, we look at how to integrate. One, and I cannot emphasize this enough, the importance of having information on the basis of which relief efforts can be coordinated. And I say this also building on my prior role in the UN. If within countries one has a sense of which are the vulnerable communities, those with more elderly people, more children, more people with disability, I cannot overemphasize how in what is always a resource-constrained environment, having that information and allowing a prioritization, enabling a prioritization becomes really critical. And I was actually very distraught yesterday to hear that in the case of our country's parish-level data is just not there. We really have to do better together. So I do encourage you to think about the issue, the very unsexy issue of data as we engage in discussions on the framework. The other is we are again reminded that within this region, we increasingly have the challenge of internally displaced people. And I cannot, again, sufficiently emphasize the urgency of our work on this framework. So just to give some context to our work over the next couple of days, because this is in fact our first consultation with member states, you may be aware that in 2019, the CARICOM heads of states gave a mandate for the development of a robust regional migration policy framework to help further our collective work on regional integration, growth, and development through the free movement of our peoples, while of course remaining cognizant of regional and national migration-related priorities and issues. I wish in this regard to express my sincerest gratitude to the government of Trinidad and Tobago for hosting this workshop. And recognizing also the many valuable contributions made by partners and stakeholders over the last couple of years of our intensification of work, many of whom have rallied to the cause and or pledged support. The contributions have been spread across resource areas, including human resource, technical capacity building, and of course, the all-important funding for these activities. I would like in particular to recognize the valuable technical contributions made by the UN Migration Group and funding from the US Department of State, the European Union, and the Inter-American Development Bank. I would like in particular to acknowledge the significant contribution made by the International Organization for Migration, who have been the most stalwart partners in supporting the elaboration and advancement of this policy through provisions of consultancies for the coordination of the work of the community, through the regional approach to migration policy, the RAMP, steering committee, and for the development of the framework. I wish to especially extend a very warm welcome to all of you who, in spite of your very heavy schedules and other priorities, have made the decision to participate in this workshop. This workshop is critical for setting the pace for the rest of the work that needs to be done through this year and into early February 2025, where we will re-engage the heads of government on this specific issue. It is my hope that the draft framework will be on the heads of agenda, but that, of course, depends on your work as member states to give your input and your feedback to the policy. So I just want to signal that we are working against a hard deadline. With the free movement of peoples, the heads would very much like to see the framework that will underpin some of that work. It is very evident that the region has been facing and will continue to face various challenges that affect all of the lives and livelihoods of our citizens. Coming from climate change, the last week has been a very unwelcome reminder of the challenges. But I think provides an impetus to us to move speedily on elaborating the framework. I wish to reiterate the community's commitment, the Secretariat's commitment to work with all present and those yet to come on board to implement a forward-thinking regional migration policy that would help address various aspects of regional migration and human mobility as determined by your priorities as member states. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Drayton. Your recognition of the work done by the various partners is fully appreciated, together with all the funding arrangements that have gone into place, as well as your heartfelt reach to the community in terms of our members who are grappling with some serious issues presently, but that even given the inspiration in this room, that we remain resolved to work together to resolve a lot of these arrangements. Without further ado, I would now like to invite to the podium Ms. Michelle Klein-Solomon, the Director for the Department of Data, Insight and Policy Coordination at the International Organization for Migration.
Thank you very much, Sherwin, and good morning to all of you. It is truly an honor and pleasure to be here. I have just come in from Geneva, Switzerland, where I hold a new post as defined. But just a few months ago, and for the last 3.5 years, I was IOM's regional director for Central and North America, and importantly, for the Caribbean. and have been involved with the development of this policy and initiative since its outset. And it is a great honor and pleasure to have reached this day with you all here today. Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of Parliament, Minister of National Security, Government of Trinidad and Tobago, a particular thanks to you for hosting us here today in your beautiful country and with your tremendous hospitality. Thank you, sir, and thanks to your government. Assistant Secretary General for Social and Human Development at the CARICOM Secretariat, and my friend, Allison Drayton, wonderful to be here beside you. UN Resident Coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin's, Joanna Kazana, thank you for being here with us today. Mr. Jeffrey Kundu, Migration Policy Coordinator with the African Union Commission, and I'm not sure if I've seen you in the room yet. He will be online, okay. And this is a very interesting part because it allows for cross-regional sharing of ideas and inspiration. Deputy Chief of Mission of the Embassy of the United States of America, Michael Fitzpatrick, thank you, sir, and thank you for support to this initiative. Permanent secretaries, representatives of member states, development banks, United Nations organizations and agencies, civil society and the media, and all others that are joining us online that could not be with us today in particular, but those that are unable to travel due to the emergencies caused by Hurricane Beryl. And allow me to join the very moving remarks of Assistant Secretary General Drayton regarding the devastating effects of Hurricane Beryl and offer my prayers for all the people, for the well-being of all the peoples in your communities. This was a tremendous hurricane, unusually early in the season. Hurricane 5 in June, it does not bode well for the region, and I am tremendously impressed by your resilience and your commitment to being here today. My hearts are with you and all of your communities. I would like to also thank the multiple United Nations agencies and Office of the Resident Coordinators, not just the Resident Coordinator here, but from all of your states, for their enthusiastic engagement in this initiative to develop a regional migration policy for the Caribbean community. I also would like to thank the steering committee comprised of CARICOM, CARICOM Impacts, the OECS Commission, the Chair of the Chiefs of Immigration, and the International Labor Organization that joined the steering committee as providing critical, specialized technical assistance to ensure a robust labor migration component within the policy framework. Let me turn to migration more generally and setting the context for our discussion. Migration policies are truly vital to harnessing the development potential and the positive impacts of migration. According to official UN statistics, there are some 281 million international migrants in the world today. Most international migration is safe, orderly, and regular, contrary to what you might read in the news. At the same time, and building on the remarks of Assistant Secretary General Drayton, the number of those who need to leave their countries or communities of origin to seek safe and productive lives continue to rise as conflicts, political instability, situations of human rights violations, lack of economic opportunity, poverty, and inequality proliferate around the world. The number of people undertaking dangerous journeys because they see no alternative to doing so is increasing and should be of concern to all of us in the room here today. And let's not forget, as Assistant Secretary Drayton just underscored, climate change and weather-related disasters are already having a major effect on human mobility both within and across borders, and it will continue to do so and to the future. Those displaced due to the effects of climate change and disasters will need pathways enabling them to move safely, and here international cooperation is fundamental. At the same time, demographic shifts are resulting in some countries having a depleted workforce due to shrinking populations coupled with aging populations requiring care, and other countries with younger populations yet inadequate job opportunities. We need to ensure a better match between those needs and the supply and demand. And I don't mean to sound like an economist when we're talking about human beings. There are human needs, labor and otherwise, in many countries of the region, and there are other parts of the region that have people on offer looking for opportunities, as well as people further afield. This all means that there's a pressing global need for sustainable approaches and solutions to migration and displacement around the world, and the need is continuing to grow and to grow in the future. Harnessing the benefits of migration for safe, prosperous, and sustainable future requires policies and laws that help to save lives and protect people on the move, enable solutions to displacement, and facilitate regular migration. These policies and laws are the foundations of good migration governance and management and are key to realizing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and implementing the Global Compact for Safe, Regular, and Orderly Migration adopted by the General Assembly in 2018. I'd like to commend the steps taken already towards the CARICOM regional migration policy. Around the world, many governments are seeking new approaches and workable solutions to migration and displacement. Here in the Caribbean, the regional migration policy that we are gathered to discuss for the next 3 days is one particularly exciting example of this. Your coming together is notable, and I can tell you other regions of the world are watching your discussions here today. IOM commends the heads of government and the CARICOM institutions for calling for a regional migration policy and for coming together to make it a reality. This is a potentially historic and transformative framework for the Caribbean. For multiple generations, migration of all forms has defined and shaped the societies of the Caribbean. Many people have moved to the region, many have also left, and many have moved within the Caribbean, between your countries. These inward and outward trends have included people who are looking for opportunities to work or study, people displaced by the effects of climate change, and people who are simply looking for a better life in a new place. That is understandable. Whether we're referring to the arrival of people from other places or the emigration of people to opportunities elsewhere, migration can present transformative opportunities, and we all know too well it can pose significant challenges. Although you come from countries with different contexts, you have all agreed on the importance of working together to govern and manage migration. This common purpose is vital. And let me call your attentions to some priority issues that have already been identified through the consultations that we've undertaken in the lead up to this conference here today. Key issues that have already been identified include labor migration, migration and health, climate change and environmental degradation, border management, the protection of vulnerable migrants, human trafficking, emergency preparedness and response, diaspora engagement, and contrary to what Assistant Secretary General said, I think the last one I'm going to read is in fact sexy, the collection and management of migration data. We need it desperately. It is, as you say, the foundation for appropriate responses. Don't be fooled by how bureaucratic and dry it sounds. It is absolutely essential to know who is where, who they are, what they need, what are their vulnerabilities, and how we can best assist. That's the only way that we can develop policies that actually meet real needs. Subgroups of the Policy Advisory Committee helping to prepare this work have been created around three broad areas of intervention. The first, border governance, trafficking, smuggling, and refugee protection. The second, climate change and environmental migration. And thirdly, labor migration. These three large baskets of issues are relevant to all of you in this room and more. It is, of course, the sovereign right of states to determine their own migration policies in conformity with international law. IOM is here to help that process at global, regional, national, and local levels as governments and the international community grapple with multiple overlapping crises while striving to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. It's a tall order. IOM respects the global, regional, and national obligations of all member states and proposes that the regional policy framework be grounded in the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and somebody correct me if not, please. Chaguaramas, thank you very much, Chaguaramas, excuse me. It's the first time I've said it out loud. And guided by the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, along with other relevant international conventions and treaties. When it comes to regional cooperation, IOM is committed to not just a whole of government and whole of society approach, but to a whole of UN approach. And as coordinator and secretariat of the UN Network on Migration, we are delighted that our partners in the UN system have joined together with us in this effort to help underpin our support to you, the member states of CARICOM. It's also critical to promote the engagement of regional organizations, CARICOM and, of course, its constituent entities, but others like the OECS, and I'm delighted to see that we have representatives here of the OECS and other regional bodies, but also the international development banks, civil society, to make sure their voices are heard and are taken into consideration. To close, I strongly encourage everyone to participate actively throughout the next few days. You are here as equals. All of your voices matter, working towards a common goal. And we are here to help you find a path and lay the foundations for the policy. I thank you for being here. I thank you for your time and attention, and I look forward to a very stimulating next few days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Klein-Solomon, for those remarks. And of course, we acknowledge the Herculean effort that you made in getting here today. It just goes to show that despite the professional relationships we develop, once we begin to work together, those friendship forms stronger bonds that will allow us to overcome even obstacles that some professional situations might not allow. I also thank you for your recognition about the developmental aspects and the developmental benefits that this regional migration policy will deliver. And you appropriately identified for the region especially some of those challenges that we face with the movement of labor. Some refer to it as a brain drain that we will discuss a lot later on in this day. But thank you so much for your contribution. And now I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Michael Fitzpatrick, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of the United States in Trinidad and Tobago. Sir.
Good morning, and thank you to everybody who is here today. And I would especially like to thank our host, the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of Parliament, Minister of National Security, Government of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as Allison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for Social and Human Development at the CARICOM Secretariat, Joanna Kazana, UN Resident Coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin, Michelle Klein-Solomon, Director, Department of Data, Insight and Policy Coordination, International Organization for Migration, and online, Mr. Jeffrey Kondu, Migration Program Coordinator with the African Union Commission. Permanent secretaries, representatives of member states, development banks, UN agencies, civil society, and the media, and others who are joining us online that could not be with us today in person, particularly those unable to travel because of the emergencies caused by the hurricane. Good morning. The U.S. Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago is honored to join the CARICOM Secretariat, the CARICOM Impacts, IOM, and the Government of Trinidad and Tobago in welcoming you to this week's Migration Policy Framework Workshop. The migration that we see today in the Caribbean community and around the world is complex, dynamic, and mixed. Today's migration flows include not only short-term visitors and economic migrants, but also refugees and asylum seekers. The drivers of this migration and displacement in the Caribbean are just as complex, dynamic, and mixed, and include not only poverty and inequality, but also structural violence and climate-related events. Please know that as we work together to manage historical levels of human mobility, the United States remains committed to promoting safe, orderly, humane, and regular migration and access to international protection. To do this, we all need data, collaborative strategy, and cooperation. To help achieve these goals, the United States funds an IOM regional migration program in Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean called the Western Hemisphere Program, or WHP. As well as that, since 2018, the U.S. government has also supported national and regional activities, including the Caribbean Migration Consultations that jump-started regional dialogues on migration, which helped lead to the current initiative to develop a regional migration policy, and hence to this week's workshops. Over the next 3 days, you will consider the IOM's migration governance indicators, discuss your collective vision and priorities for humane migration management in the region, and develop an action plan for implementation. Your discussions will most likely be grounded in the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas and the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. We also hope that the Los Angeles Declaration on Migration and Protection, which has been endorsed by 22 countries in the hemisphere, including 6 CARICOM countries, can be a reference. On behalf of the U.S. government, I thank you for your continued attention to the shared challenges of migration and protection, including your commitment to participation in this week's workshop. We also thank the IOM, the CARICOM Secretariat, the EU, the Inter-American Development Bank, the International Labor Organization, and of course our host, the Government of Trinidad and Tobago, for their support of this workshop. I wish you a productive series of sessions, and we look forward to learning about the workshop's results and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, sir. reminding us that despite all our efforts, we really need that resource to be able to move us together. And we thank you for all the work that the United States government has been doing within this region in support of the goals of CARICOM and the related states. And now, I would like to invite the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, Minister of National Security of the Government of Trinidad and Tobago, to address us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, for your kind introduction. Madam Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for Social and Human Development of our CARICOM Secretariat. Madam Joanna Kazana, UN Resident Coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin. Ms. Michelle Klein Solomon, Director, Insight Policy Coordination of the IOM. Mr. Jeffrey Kundu, Migration Program Coordinator with the African Union Commission. Of course, Mr. Michael Fitzpatrick, Deputy Chief of Mission of the U.S. Embassy here in Port of Spain, permanent secretaries, all of you beautiful representatives of our respective CARICOM member states, representatives of the development banks, the UN organizations and agencies, and other civil society groups that are with us here today, members of the media, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am more than happy to have been invited to be with you today to issue these opening remarks for the workshop that is planned and that is ahead of us, focused on shaping regional migration policy and taking stock of the migration governance indicators process. I, on behalf of the government and all of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, welcome you. To our visitors in particular, many of you, of course, not for the first time, I issue as well a warm welcome to these shores, confident that you will enjoy every moment of it outside of the activity of the conference. I am honored that our esteemed partners, the CARICOM Secretariat, the IOM, and the United States Department of State, Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, selected Trinidad and Tobago to host this workshop. And we are more than happy to have you, and you have expressed, a few of you, your admiration of our receptiveness and our hospitality. We are more than happy to have extended that. And we are happy as well to have been able to support this process. Today's gathering, of course, marks a significant milestone in our collective efforts following the mandate from the CARICOM heads of government in February 2019 to collaborate with UN agencies on this critical endeavor. As Minister with the responsibility for national security in Trinidad and Tobago, I am acutely aware of the complexities and the many challenges that migration presents to our respective nations here in the region. I am equally aware of its potential for sustainable human and economic development. I thank you very much. It touches our society in many facets of our existence, from from economic development and social cohesion to national security and cultural diversity. We are here in this collective effort to approach a resolution, if we can, to one of the world's burgeoning and pressing issues, that of migration. For Trinidad and Tobago, I take the opportunity to restate our government policy, consistent with many other countries in the main, is three-pronged. We take the position that governments, as far as is possible, ought to create conditions within its borders to ensure that its people can find happy, productive, fulfilling, and prosperous lives within those borders. The second element is that when people are forced to move for whatever reason and go to another state, they deserve the fulsome protection of the Constitution and the laws of that country. And finally, we take the position that where persons are not deserving of that protection, swift repatriation has to be the order of the day. That is consistent with the policy of many other countries, but I just thought we should restate it. Displacement is caused by natural disasters, but of course they are caused by political and social upheavals as well, as we all know, by wars, for example, in the Ukraine and in Gaza. And therefore, some of the displacement that the world sees is indeed preventable if people would sit and talk rather than war. Forced displacement, as the UNHCR identified as at May 2024, has generated migration of 120 million people around the globe, 114 million on the basis of war alone. So it is not insignificant. Trinidad and Tobago is a country of origin, transit, and destination, and a destination for migration, all in one. This has been our reality historically and contemporarily, given our geographic location and socio-economic realities. This is also the reality of our fellow CARICOM member states. And this unique set of migration dynamics presents a unique set of opportunities and responsibilities to and for us here in the region. We recognize that migration can bring significant benefits, enriching our communities with diverse skills. In fact, in some cases, they do. Cultures and perspectives. However, it also poses very serious challenges, including the management of irregular migration, safeguarding national borders, and addressing the needs of persons who come into our borders in terms of their need for protection. Cognizant of this, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has embarked on a number of policies and policy initiatives aimed at addressing some of our most pressing migration issues. In response to the significant increase of Venezuelan nationals, the government, and this is no boast, it's probably a rejoice, unlike many other countries in the world, we established a migrant registration framework in 2019, which allowed regular and irregular Venezuelan and all other migrants in Trinidad and Tobago to register with the state, allowing them at the same time to work and live here. We didn't put them in camps any place and keep them in those conditions. They are allowed to roam, some marry Trinbagonians, and their life was made as comfortable as was practicable in respect of our migrant registration framework. and we are quite proud about that. The government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has also very recently given the green light by an amendment to our immigration regulations within the purview of the Immigration Act of Trinidad and Tobago. We have given the green light for primary school age children of the persons registered in our migrant registration framework to register and attend our public schools, state-sponsored schools. The denominational schools, of which there are quite a few, they entertained these children prior to this development. Now they are free to go to all of the schools across Trinidad and Tobago once they are the children of those registered in the framework. Trinidad and Tobago recognizes clearly the need for protection of persons in the aftermath of natural disasters, in particular hurricanes, which afflicts us here in the region in serious ways. The Honorable Prime Minister has very recently extended an invitation, something that was done in the past in the case of Dominica in relation to Hurricane Maria, to school-aged children to come to Trinidad and Tobago if they have relatives, if they have family, without more, and to enjoy some comfort and safety here in the aftermath of Beryl. And as you would have heard from the Deputy Secretary General, we are very enthusiastically involved in support and relief effort for our brothers and sisters in some of the neighboring islands who were particularly hard hit. Bear in mind that Beryl followed a 6.4 earthquake a few days before she appeared. Our buildings in Trinidad and Tobago mercifully and thankfully stood manfully to that challenge. Well, not manfully, stood powerfully. I want to be careful. To that challenge. And they did so a couple of years ago when we faced a 7.4 tremor. Those two experiences and the threat of hurricanes have caused us in Trinidad and Tobago, as I'm sure all of you, to understand that wherever in the world we are the subject of serious elements of vulnerability. And therefore, in that consciousness, in that understanding, it is extremely easy, Madam Deputy General Secretary, to reach out to others when they are so afflicted. At the international level, and with the support of our IOM partners, we were involved in the process to develop the Global Compact for Safe, Regular, and Orderly Migration, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2018, which provides a comprehensive framework for addressing the complexities of migration. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago continues to implement the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas as it relates to the movement of a broad category of persons across our single market and economy framework, and we are committed to soon realizing, alongside our brother and sister member states, the free and full movement of CARICOM nationals within the CSME. All of this alongside the routine application of our Immigration Act, and I talk about daily routine work under our Immigration Act, through which we entertain thousands of applications, a large chunk of them being successful. As I speak to you, like every other Minister of National Security or minister with that responsibility, I have loads of files on my desk to treat with in respect of this application, where people simply apply and it is considered, and as I said, a large chunk are successful, alongside all the other things, of course, we do. And just in passing, as we all concentrated on the word Chaguaramas this morning, it is an Amerindian word, and of course it was bequeathed to us by the indigenous people who we all met here, and there are many other legacies. And I think its interpretation is palmis palm. So just to share with us so that we do recognize and we have the original people still with us and still protected and a part of the national life as they all should be. Today's gathering is a pivotal step towards fostering regional cooperation and solidarity in addressing these challenges. Discussions at this workshop, I am advised, will focus on the importance of a comprehensive, multi-sectoral approach to migration, central to which is the migration governance indicators. My understanding is that these governance indicators is a capacity building tool which provides participating countries with evidence-based policy options to strengthen the governance of migration issues. I'm advised that the Migration Governance Indicators assessment for Trinidad and Tobago is now complete, and I look forward to receiving and reviewing the results therefrom. Trinidad and Tobago stands ready to contribute constructively to the development of a regional migration policy that reflects our collective values and aspirations and circumstances. We value and we are committed to working with our friends at the CARICOM Secretariat, our friends in the IOM, and all the UN agencies, and of course the member states as a whole. As we embark on this journey together, let us harness the expertise, the insights, and the experience that we already have among us as we are gathered here today to shape the policy framework that is in front of us. And those would respond not only to the current migration realities, but they should prepare us for future challenges. Let us reaffirm our commitment to a CARICOM that stands united in its approach to migration, recognizing the transformative potential while safeguarding the rights and dignity of the individuals. Together, let us chart a path forward that promotes regional integration and enhances the safety and security of all the citizens of the region and, of course, our visitors. In the context of regional integration, I am very proud to say, as a citizen of the region, looking on, and in some cases as a minister with access to some of the issues, I am very, very, very proud and will take the opportunity to congratulate the leaders of the region, because I have seen a very active and practical implementation of the business of regional integration. I've seen that, and I congratulate all our leaders in this regard. It requires, of course, work, and we could formulate the policy, and we can do all of these wonderful things, but behind that, as the Deputy Secretary General told us earlier, and of course, our IOM rep here this morning told us there's the need for work. We all have to work. So at the end of this conference, this symposium, it is hoped that all of us as professionals and as leaders will return to our workstations and lead the way, get on with the work, because we know if we do the work, we can prepare for all of the future challenges that can reasonably be anticipated. And I close with the words of Bob Marley from one of his songs, one of my favorites, "Wake Up and Live" is the name of the song, where he says, and I quote, "Rise, ye mighty people, There's work to be done, so let's do it little by little. Have a productive workshop. Good luck, and God bless you. I thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Honorable Minister. And of course, I just want to reiterate thanks for the government of Trinidad and Tobago for hosting this event and for you reminding us about the hard work that has been going on steadfastly behind the scenes, given your track record and given a lot of best practices that you have been speaking to in terms of really reaching out and putting practical systems in place for treating with migrant populations. Thank you so much for that. You have indeed set the pace for what we're going to be doing over the next 3 days, and I think our job is going to be even much easier now that we've heard about the successes that you've had with the migrant registration framework, as well as the work that has been going on with the GCM. We recognize too, and this is at a technical level, some of the work that has been going on to this point, that once we had begun to reach out to member states with the surveys that went through, that a lot of the responses that were coming back was based on the successes and the opportunities that would be offered by the MGM. So thank you so much for recognizing that, and thank you so much for being a practical example of making migration work, with creating the environment, both legislative and otherwise, for things to go apace, and really putting your money where your mouth is, and actually getting results. So thank you very much for that, Minister. So this, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the pause, not the end, the pause of this segment. Before we move on, I would like to ask you to remain seated while our communications team invites and takes control of the head table here for a brief photograph. We get our photographs after, so don't be jealous. So just remain seated, and I hand over to our communications team to get the photograph done, and she will give whatever instructions, what needs to happen, and then you're invited for a coffee break. Thank you so much. Come here, Chanel. No? You can use it.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So first of all, we would like to take the head table, which would be done right here. Then we'll invite other persons from the IOM team and CARICOM team and Impacts team. And for the group shot, we will do it. Maxine, could you just verify? Here or after lunch? The big group, the entire group. So we'll do the entire group closer to lunch. All right? Because of the time and where we would like to take it, because of the size of the team. All right, so let's get started with the pictures. Thank you.